Thank you. Thank you so very much. And what an honor to be here with you in Atlanta, Georgia. I bring you greetings from my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, the home of Elvis and Jerry the King Lawler and smoked pork butt. That's about what we've got over in Memphis. But it is an honor to be here at this great gathering as we mobilize patriots all over America. Tony mentioned my new book, and I'm kind of excited about this one, and I'll be signing copies after a little while at the bookstore. Our Daily Biscuit, Devotions with a Drawl. Someone said, are you going to write a northern version of this book? And we're working on our Daily Bagel, Devotions with a Schmear. So we'll let you know how that turns out. But you know, after 15 years of working at Fox News Channel, I went back home to Memphis, Tennessee, bought a news talk radio station, KWAM, and we base all of our national operations out of Memphis now. And it's great to be back home, and it's great to be back where people know what sweet tea actually is. I got a call just after the pandemic started from my Uncle Jerry, and he said, Todd, you've got to get back here because the liberals are taking over Memphis. And I said, what do you mean, Uncle Jerry? He says, Todd, I went down to the barbecue joint, and they're smoking tofu, barbecue tofu. So I got the quickest Delta flight I could and came back home and tried to help save my hometown from the liberals. They're kind of like kudzu, aren't they? They cover everything and then they kill what they cover. So that's sort of liberalism for you. My Aunt Lynn is the church organist at the Methodist Church. She's also in charge of church security, which is important in Memphis these days. She has a bedazzled Glock on the piano bench. And she's the only woman I know who can play Amazing Grace and squeeze off a couple of rounds without missing a beat. You know, one of the things that we try to do on our national radio show every day is share a good laugh. I mean, we are going through some difficult times in America, no doubt about it. And we try to have fun. It was great meeting some of our listeners from over in the Outer Banks who listen to us on the talk station. And we try to encourage people of faith all over America. We're in a fight for our country, and we're going to go through some difficult days. But with folks like Tony Perkins and Family Research Council and the great First Baptist Church of Atlanta, I think that we are going to be able to restore America. My team always gets upset because I always forget to say this, so I will say it now while it's crossing my brain. I want to encourage you to check out our website, toddstarnes.com. We have some great free products for you there. My daily podcast, now listened to by about 1.5 million people a month. And we also have a newsletter that goes out every single day. It is free of charge. We don't share your information. We just want to make sure you are getting stories that we think are very important to the culture at large. And so I'd encourage you to check out toddstarnes.com. Every day on my national radio program, we operate with this philosophy found in the Old Testament in the book of Leviticus. Proclaim liberty throughout all the land and unto all the inhabitants thereof. We've got a lot to celebrate in recent days. The Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, and if I might be so bold as to remind you, it was a Trump Supreme Court that did that. We are seeing moms and dads across America who are now rising up, and they're pushing back against the radical indoctrination that's happening in our public school classrooms. But the fight rages on. Sadly, many of our public schools are, in fact, indoctrination centers for the sex and gender revolutionaries, telling children as young as 3 years old about transgenderism, allowing drag queens to frolic about in classrooms and public libraries, spreading a message of gender confusion. Well, brothers and sisters, I'm here to tell you that God is not the author of confusion. In Memphis, Tennessee, just the other day, we learned that the beautiful Pink Palace Museum has gone rainbow. They've renamed themselves the Museum of Science and History, MOSH. Well, they've just announced they're hosting a family-friendly drag show. One of the staff members said that the reason why they're hosting a family-friendly drag show is that children under the age of 18 are not allowed to actually watch a drag show in a gay bar in town. So if you can't watch the drag show in a gay bar, why would we want to put that in a taxpayer-funded facility? But then it goes a step further, and they said what makes this show family-friendly is that the drag queens keep all their clothes on. Well, it seems to me they ought to be renaming MOSH the Museum of Sexual Hijinks. And it's really unfortunate that the taxpayers in Memphis have to put up with that. This is happening not in Berkeley, California, not in Los Angeles or New York City, but in the Bible Belt, not too far from one of the largest churches in America. So the fight rages on. Schools are banning books like Little House on the Prairie and Cat in the Hat, while forcing kids to read pornographic material that I am not going to mention in the pulpit here of the First Baptist Church of Atlanta. What they are doing in our public schools is not just criminal, it is sinful. Now, just before he was inaugurated, President-elect Biden warned the nation that a very dark winter was coming to America. Well, the president delivered on that promise. A dark winter did, in fact, come to America, and then came a dark spring and summer and fall, and another dark winter, and another dark spring, another dark summer, and here we are, it is autumn. Midway through the president's four-year term, an overwhelming majority of Americans are angry and frustrated. According to NBC News, 74% of the country says we're on the wrong tracks. 58% say our nation's best days are behind us. That is tragic, brothers and sisters. A great malaise has come across our nation. But we cannot allow Lady Liberty's lamp to flicker. It has to burn brightly for all the nations to see. And that's what I want to talk to you about in our few moments together. By the way, a bit of breaking news. I was checking my news feed before I stepped up here, and word has just come that the governor of Texas decided to send more illegals to another sanctuary city, the front yard of the vice president's home. Maybe the second dude can give him some iced tea or something. I don't know. You know, I believe that faith and freedom go hand in hand. John Adams, our second president, put it like this: our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the governments of any other. So what does that mean? Well, it means when you take God out of our founding documents, when you take God out of our way of life, when you marginalize our churches, you get chaos in the culture. And the Constitution, brothers and sisters, is under assault from an army of pronoun-confused anarchists and pajama boy snowflakes and woke evangelicals, as I call them. Just yesterday at Liberty University, and by the way, we are honored to be partnering with Liberty University. We've had a partnership for the past 3 years, helping train up the next generation of journalists in America. Vice President Pence was there, and he delivered a terse warning to the students as well as some encouragement. He says, the truth is, we live in a time when freedom of religion is under assault. We live in a time when it's acceptable and even fashionable to ridicule and even discriminate against people of faith. But then he told the students, thousands of them at Liberty University, that they are the freedom generation. And we need to be spreading that message across the nation. I believe one of the most important roles in your local church is that of the youth pastor. Your youth pastors need to be preparing these young people for the attacks they're going to face in the culture at large. It's no longer just good enough to have a little youth camp where you play fun and games and arts and crafts and eat Hydrox cookies. That's what we did as a Baptist. We're past those days. Now we are in a fight for the soul of the nation, and we've got to start taking it seriously. You know, I go back to the days of the pandemic. My greatest fear was not that virus. My greatest fear was how quickly my fellow citizens were giving up their civil liberties. Churches in Mississippi were shut down. Again, let me repeat that. Mississippi, not Berkeley, not San Francisco. The mayor of a Mississippi town actually sent the police out to hand out citations to Christians gathered in a parking lot to worship God in Mississippi. Most recently, we learned that Seattle Pacific University is under state investigation for following the Bible's teachings on marriage. And just about a week ago, we reported that a public school in Illinois apologized after a Baptist preacher prayed a blessing over teachers. I suspect whoever it was that was offended was one of those purple-haired, pronoun-confused TikTokers. The country's a mess. People are hurting, and we've got a lot of problems we have to deal with. A Gallup poll found 55% of 18 to 29-year-olds view socialism favorably. Only 39% of our fellow countrymen are actually proud to be an American. And why is this? Well, this is what the kids are learning in school. That's where this is happening. Another big issue facing our nation is absolute truth. And if I say nothing else, I hope you understand how significant this problem is. Everybody has their own truth nowadays, right? Which is why CNN can report on peaceful protest as the entire city of Minneapolis is burning behind them. Everybody has their own truth. You have yours, I have mine. But what society never stopped to address is what happens when my truth conflicts with your truth. Whose truth takes precedent? And I think we know the answer to that because, again, chaos in the culture. So I want to illustrate how silly this idea of everybody has their own truth is. So I went out to have a delicious meal yesterday, and I had a great dessert. It was a salted caramel cheesecake, and it was delicious. Now, some of you are looking at me right now, and you're saying, Todd probably should have skipped the cheesecake. You might look and say, Todd could lose a few pounds. Well, that would be your truth. But what if my truth is that I'm trans-slender? What if that's my truth? Now, of course, it's ludicrous, because even if that is my truth, there's no way I'm going to get into a pair of skinny jeans. I'll be coming out one end and the other. I'll look like a cannoli. So I just want you to remember that the next time you get into a conversation about absolute truth. You know, in spite of all of the chaos out there, I still have hope for America. And I want to explain why. I'm working on a new book, and I came across a letter that Ronald Reagan wrote in the Oval Office back in 1982. And I think it's a fascinating letter. You can imagine all of the weight of the world was on Ronald Reagan's shoulder, the Cold War raging, and a lot of uncertainty in the nation. It was about that time that his father-in-law, Loyal Davis, who was a pioneering neurosurgeon, was nearing death. His father-in-law was an atheist. And Ronald Reagan sat down in the Oval Office, and he wrote a 4-page letter to his father-in-law. And in that letter, the great communicator, the leader of the free world, shared the gospel message. And he wrote it out. He wrote out John 3:16, and he was pouring his heart out onto that piece of paper, praying that his father-in-law would come to know Jesus as his Lord and Savior. It's a fascinating story. You see, Ronald Reagan, in spite of all of the problems, in spite of all of the world turmoil, in spite of the cultural chaos, knew that the most important issue facing America was a heart issue. You see, if we're going to change America, we're going to have to work on people's hearts. We, as brothers and sisters, are going to have to share the good news of the gospel. You see, I have hope in America because my hope is not built on a political party. My hope is not built on the White House. My hope is not built in the halls of Congress, as we used to sing in our Baptist church. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Now, There will be some who will try to silence our voices. They will try to bully us into submission, but we must not be silent. We must not be bullied. And like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, we must not bow down. There's a quote attributed to Dietrich Bonhoeffer: "Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us guiltless." Well, I believe this is a Bonhoeffer moment for every freedom-loving, Bible-believing patriot in America. And the time has come for all of us to stand together and vote together and pray together and with one voice declare that we are one nation under God. Thank you very much, and God bless America.